Hey guys, Ryan here. I just wanted to let you guys know that I wanted to insert a little bit of a content warning before this week's episode. This week we are touching on topics of sexual assault and other sorts of sexual misconduct. And so I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of that before actually listening to this episode. Thanks.
Hey guys, welcome to Save Continued Podcast, where every week we get together and talk about video games and video game related stuff. With me this week is Ryan Robinson,
Hi, hello.
and I'm Shanae Howard. As
Um,
well as I didn't introduce myself.
the This water threw me off because
It's not that giant jug that you need two hands for.
yeah, well, there's that, but also for a second it tasted like there was corn in it. But
Oh,
so I had to,
like the band?
yeah, and I had to make sure that like there's nothing wrong with it. But
uh, did you find any corn in the water?
no, it just tasted weird, you know? Like, if you ever drink something and it tastes weird and you have to look at it for a second?
It's normally because I like ate something before I drank it beforehand.
Yeah, well, I had some chicken nuggets earlier, so maybe that's it. You know, the number one ingredient of chicken McNuggets is corn, right?
Oh, if it's McNuggets, then yes. It
Yeah.
is so not chicken.
So
Chicken is
like
not that number one.
I was talking to some friends the other day about the McRib, and it's so funny how people are like, I'm not taking that fucking vaccine because I don't trust anything that the good Lord Himself didn't put in my body. Now give me that McRib. It's just funny
Have
'cause-
you uh have you ever seen the like a McRib frozen like before it's cooked?
yeah, I actually saw that today.
Yeah, I
Um,
saw it on Reddit the other day and I was like, yeah, that looks like snow that fell off a boot. Like that doesn't look
yeah.
like I
Well,
know things
like,
are like white whenever they're frozen or like if they have that layer of frost on them,
yeah.
but they just look white. Like they don't look like they're gonna
I
turn any
look.
color.
I know that it's the hot take to say that McDonald's food is fake, but like, here's the thing: is that like I've only ever eaten a McRib one time in my entire life, and it that time it tasted like someone had already chewed it, and that was also when I realized that the like because they make the McRib look like there's bones on it, like
Yeah.
ribs, but like and then I realized like, oh, these bones are fake. But then then I had another thought. I
You
was
try
like,
to eat around the bone?
no, like I just bit into it. But then I had another thought. Like, okay, then what are the bones made out of? Like, what is that supposed to be made out of?
Same
So
stuff. I mean, it's just the meat compressed
I
to
guess
it.
I just don't.
I mean, like
It's just gross. That whole sandwich is gross, and people wait all year for that sandwich to come back. It's just the grossest thing.
I think it's like more of the sauce. I don't know. I don't know what the appeal is. My
It's just the McNugget sauce. It's the McNugget barbecue sauce they're putting on that some bitch. That's all it is.
but I don't know, dude. I never get it. My mom will get it every now and then. But that's just like normally if we're on a road trip and it's out.
Well, it's fucking
Um,
disgusting. So
yeah. But I mean like the burgers aren't like just beef either. They're also a bunch of fillers in there and they're
yeah,
delicious. Like
yeah,
McDonald's spends a lot of money
yeah,
on scientists to make
yeah.
our bodies crave it.
See, I would love to be one of those people who pretends that he thinks McDonald's is gross and disgusting, but like I
But you
can't.
have you have shown your ass too many times
I
on this
can't.
show.
Well, like it's not even just that. It's just like I can't bring myself to pretend that I don't legitimately enjoy eating something because every time I eat one, see, there's most of the time I feel like garbage afterwards, but while I'm in it, like I'm really enjoying myself, you know?
Before it hits.
Yeah. Like I used to make the mistake of
Uh,
eating double quarter pounders on my lunch break at work, and that is not a good thing to do in the middle of your workday. But I did it, and
I
that's why my weight got out of control. But hey, look at me now, baby. Only slightly out of control. So
I mean, now you drop that soda, you eat significantly less McDonald's.
yeah,
You're on the right track. Proud of you.
yeah, I do
You're
actually.
setting goals and you're achieving them.
Yeah, well, yeah, I never actually looked at the calorie count on like a McDonald's extra value meal, and it's like it's a day's worth of calories in one meal, and then I would eat that, and then I would eat again when I got home. Sometimes
I
McDonald's again. So
I think someone I was talking to somebody the other day, and they like looked at the calorie and like nutritional value in a Big Mac, and I think one Big Mac has more salt than you need for the entire day.
yeah, yeah. So
And then I think it's like also like 2,700 calories.
like I'm not trying to get on. I'm not trying to be all super size me here. Like I like that's
But
I was
I'd say a double quarter pounder though is only like 800 calories.
yeah only 800 calories in one fucking sandwich. Uh,
I mean, it's not 2,700. I'll put it out there
sure.
on
Yeah,
that.
but that's the thing too, Shanae, is I would get that sandwich, and then I would get the large fry, and then I would get the large soda, and then there's just a whole it's a whole thing after that. So
It's all your calories in one meal.
yeah, but then like I hunger again, like
Because they have made your brain crave it with all the
yeah,
things they put in there.
yeah, I
They've
still crave it.
scientifically made it delicious.
Yeah, it just sucks that like the things that I like aren't good for me. You know.
Tell me about it. As somebody who is like still like continually struggling with not wanting to smoke cigarettes and continue to smoking cigarettes.
Man, cigarettes feel good, man, but I don't
Yeah, but
smoke
they real
them.
bad for you.
I don't
They
smoke
real
them,
bad for you.
but they feel good.
They make you look cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think as someone who was a smoker in his 30s, I had long since gotten over the idea that cigarettes made me look cool, but
Never thought cigarettes made you look cool. I just think it's a funny stereotype.
but they absolutely did make
Um,
me look cool. So,
maybe you, not me. Someone's just like, why is that teenager smoking? Who
sure,
allowed that?
sure.
Well, actually, it probably happens so much less now.
There
Um,
was one time I got caught smoking when I was like 13 years old. Like somebody told my like I was out at this pool hall near my middle school, and that was we went there.
just sharking the tables.
Well, not really. We just went there because we knew that adults had no scruples about buying children cigarettes there. And I remember I was there smoking cigarettes with my friends, and I look over at the doorway, and in comes my mom. Like she knew I was there, and
Ooh.
to this day, I don't know who narked on me. But when I find him,
It was Tom.
I couldn't have been Tom, but
No, I'm joking.
I mean, if
Uh,
it was, I don't know, but it was crazy. And then she made me write an apology letter to my dad, which was like further humiliating. Like
okay.
I was and like which what's crazy is like write an apology letter to my dad who was in prison about smoking cigarettes. So it is whatever.
Oh,
Anyway,
that's a white lady punishment.
yeah.
That's like the level of like me
But
holding
here's
cubby holes to
what
argue with
got
my mom.
what got me is he wouldn't have known about it if I didn't write the letter telling him about it. I wouldn't have needed to
But
apologize for
also, why
anything.
apologize to him?
I don't
You
know.
should apologize to your mother, or like for like
Apologize to your
hurting the bot
mother.
hurting the body that she gave birth to. Like I don't know, like that would
Yeah,
make more sense than your dad.
sure. But
I don't know,
I bet she doesn't remember.
but
I bet she doesn't remember me like. I bet she doesn't remember telling me to do that. But she definitely did.
maybe. But yeah, hey, so what games have you played this week?
So I gotta tell you, man, I got sucked into something.
Oh God.
So I reinstalled Warframe this week,
Mm-hmm.
and like keep in mind that I hadn't played that game regularly for like 7 years, and which is like around when the PS4 came out, and it is quite the different game at this point. There has been update after update after update after update to that game. Like they've made all these additions to the lore, maybe even changed some of it, like revamped all these different systems. There are like open world areas now, and so there's a lot going on. But that said, one of the things that I remember kind of feeling out of my reach when I first played the game was getting the materials to build a weapon, a weapon outside of the weapons that I already had. It always just because like you can either build those weapons or you can buy premium currency to just buy them outright. And I was like, well, I was at a point in time where I was just like, well, I'm not putting any money into this game, so I'm going to try to build them, but I couldn't really, figure that out. But I finally put together I finally got the materials for this assault rifle that I wanted to build. And then once I did that, I was like, holy shit, I'm in it. So like
I'm in it.
yeah. Yeah, it's a cool fit like so I was talking to Kaylee about this last night, and like a lot of one of the things about free to play games is that in some form or fashion they will put a timer on something.
Oh yeah.
And that is your incentive to pay money to speed that timer up. Uh, but I don't know what it is. But I so what'll usually happen is like you put your blueprint together, you put it in the little machine to make whatever, and it'll tell you like you've got this many hours until it's done, and then it'll be ready to use, and it'll tell you how much of the premium currency it wants you to spend in order to make it instant.
To fast forward, yeah.
And so like I'll look at it and I would just be like, man, I can't. I was like, I can't wait to check in 12 hours. I'm gonna come back in 12 hours. My gun's gonna be all ready. Or like I'll do it right before bed. I was like, man, when I wake up tomorrow, I'll have my thing
When I
ready.
get up,
Yeah. And so like I don't know. There's something.
I'm gonna have a new thing.
I don't know what it is. I think there's something about it to me that is appealing. And I think it's part of it. There's a gratification that comes with like sourcing the materials because it's not easy to find all the materials to make a given item or a different warframe. But once you do find them, it's satisfying to like put them all together and then put them in the little machine and then just like, okay, I did it. I did everything I needed to do to get this thing. So it's satisfying when it when it pays off. But yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with it. Uh, just trying to kind of I'm playing through like a lot of like there's because a lot of the missions are kind of they're like really small like sectioned off missions that you can usually complete in the matter of a few minutes, and doing that has allowed me to get a better handle on like how the way the game works and customization of my equipment and all that. So I've been having a lot of fun playing that, and then of course um, I'm still playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which surprisingly, and I think it's partly due to the fact that like I've also been kind of giving a little time to like other games outside of that, but like I put 101 hours in that game so far, maybe 103 hours in that game so far, and I so far do not feel burned out on it. Like I am actually still actively enjoying playing the game. Um,
That's a
yeah, it's really cool. I just wonder like every Assassin's Creed since Origins has gotten bigger and bigger and like has more and more shit like within the maps, and I just wonder like how big are they gonna make these games? Like how much scale are they gonna try to apply to
it's gonna
them?
be the next No Man's Sky is gonna be Assassin's Creed Sky.
I feel like at some point Assassin's Creed will adopt a games as a service model akin to like Destiny or I guess now No Man's Sky. I think that like at some point Assassin's Creed will become a platform that they just kind of build onto. Um, but we'll see. But yeah, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, while it is not without its bugs and glitches and whatnot, is still it's a very entertaining game. So I plan to see it through because I really want that platinum, and then after that, it's Persona 5 time. Like I'm actually going to sit down and devote my time to Persona 5 Royal because I want to play that one. But yeah, so because I've managed to somehow avoid spoilers for that game for so long. Like I don't know how I did it because I never took a break from the internet, but like somehow I managed to avoid
You
like
just
some
you just
spoilers for that game.
naturally navigated
Yeah, I,
the waters that are the internet and avoided all dangers.
yeah. Well, I feel like I've actually gotten adept at avoiding spoilers because like if it's a thing that I care about, then I will not like if I see a picture of that thing, I'm like, nope, because I don't want to look at those comments. Or if like I'm listening to a podcast and they start talking about talking about that game or any game that I'm care about, and I'm like, nope, let me just fast forward past this because I don't know, I'm just good at it.
Yeah, mad skills.
Yeah, I've got great skills, so I'm but yeah, I'm looking forward to actually playing through that game because then I want to play that Persona 5. What is it? Rumble?
Gold, Golden Rumble or
Golden
whatever. Yeah.
Rumble. I want to play that when that
I
comes
was
out.
like, what? I know which one you're talking about, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So
What else have you been playing? Or
uh,
is that about it?
that's just some Mortal Kombat. And oh, I played the other night. I downloaded Zombie Army Trilogy for the PlayStation. I already had it on computer, but a couple of my friends wanted,
Computress.
yeah, on my computerist. But a couple of friends wanted to play it. It was on sale for $5. So
Ooh,
yeah, so
high dollar price.
yeah, it's hard to say no to that. So played some Zombie Army Trilogy with some friends the other night, which is actually, come to think of it, this is the first time I played that game multiplayer. It's very fun, hilarious time playing that game
Nice.
multiplayer, shooting those Nazi zombies.
I mean, shooting Nazis is always a good time in my
Yeah,
book.
yeah, honestly, yeah, it really is, and it gets better when they're zombies. So, but that's it. That's pretty much that's me.
Would you say that like that Nazi zombies or Nazi androids, which one would be more satisfying to kill?
So like here's my take on that, because I think Nazi zombies, because they were already racist when they were
Like,
alive, and then they
because they're
continue.
OG zombies. All
Yeah,
right, they're OG Nazis.
and
Like,
they
they're not like the new ones.
yeah,
They're like the old.
and so like now they continue to be racist after being risen from the dead, whereas a Nazi android, depending on the level of whether or not it's sentient, but I'm going to assume it's not sentient, and I'm going to assume that it was
It's an AI thing. So
I'm gonna
it's
assume.
taking all of what Twitter says.
Okay. So like, I don't know. I think that I feel like a Nazi android, would be a little less satisfying because that thing was kind of programmed to be racist, and
I'm
so
fair on that.
that's not as. So I feel like the agency isn't there to make that satisfying. So I think Nazi zombies is the way to go.
I mean, well thought out answer.
Sure.
uh yeah, I've been getting back into Divinity. I just
Mm-hmm.
like I'm at this point I'm very much confusing myself with the two games and what I have and have not done because they are so like close together. And there's some things that like I am trying not to do so I don't spoil for myself later. And but I cannot remember sometimes what that thing is. And now I'm like, uh, so I just need to finish one of the games so I can get less confused on that. I've been thinking about buying Cyberpunk, but I've been hearing a lot of the complaints, and a lot of people are saying like wait to get it till some things are patched.
Yeah.
Um,
I just I really like, I don't know what it is. Like I guess I don't have the affinity for CD Project Red that a lot of other people seem to. Um, like I think, I didn't really think The Witcher was that cool until The Witcher 3 came out. Um, and with Cyberpunk, like I even before it came out, I was just like, I want to be part of the excitement that everybody else is feeling, but like I couldn't find a reason to be. And then I just the way.
cool. I think it looks like different. I think it looks like it's going to be a good game. I just and I do like playing like it doesn't happen very often, but I do like playing games that are big that everybody else is playing. So I like it has that shared experience.
Yeah,
And it's been a while since like Kingdom Hearts really that I've had that or Kingdom Hearts 3 that I really had that.
true.
So that's another really kind of reason I want it. Like I mean, I've seen a lot of people like be very dramatic, but a lot of the people that I talk to, they're like, yeah, it crashes every now and then. I read a report for the team, and, like, but it's not unplayable. It just crashes, and I'm like, well, that doesn't sound like fun. I like
Yeah,
games that don't crash,
yeah.
so I'm gonna continue to play those. And once that stops crashing, then I'll buy it.
I think that I'll
And
probably just hold off until like, um, until like my console situation improves. Um, but as of right
yeah,
now, I can't see myself putting money into that game.
and then Berto's Christmas gift just came in early, and well, not like came in early, but he like ordered it early. It's he got a 4K monitor
A 4K monitor,
hmm for his computers,
right on.
and he's been super stoked about that. And then I've been watching a lot of Titans, like the DC show Titans.
Okay.
It's on HBO Max.
Okay.
It's
So
so good. It is
what is
actually
that?
super good.
What is that exactly? What is the
It's
Titan,
kind
like the Teen Titans, like those guys?
it's yeah, it's those guys, but like more OG comic book stories, less like it's not like funny little kids.
I see.
And it's fantastic. It's so much more violent than I
Oh,
was
isn't
expecting it
that
to
the
be.
one where Robin is like fuck Batman? Doesn't he say fuck Batman at some point?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so people
that's
made that a
right.
big deal in the trailer, and that's not like everything I guess that is like about Dick Grayson's personality. And but they also have like Jason Todd in it, who's also Robin.
Of course.
And then they like Starfire
I
is
remember.
like
Yeah,
her actress.
I remember everybody. I remember a bunch of people. Well, not a bunch of people, but a bunch of racists being upset that Starfire was black, and I was just like, well, you know what? It's an alien,
She's normally
and
orange
she's orange,
and she's an alien.
so like,
Like,
who cares?
but she is so charismatic and her voice is fantastic. She's a
Yeah.
wonderful actress. Her chemistry with the guy who plays Dick Grayson is fantastic. So like Dick Grayson and this caller Corey, they are kind of like the parents, and then like Gar, who's Beast Boy, is like kind of like a little bit younger than them, and then the youngest is Raven, but they just call her Rachel now. I just got to season two.
Rachel.
It's yeah, it's like so she's just finding out like what her powers are in
Uh
the
huh.
first season, and like each episode's kind of like an anthology, but like with an overarching story. Like every episode introduces like a new character from the comics. Like I think episode like 2 is Hawk and Dove. They also do meet Donna Troy, and like they have a Jason Todd episode. Um like they have an episode where they get like all kind of like separated and fucked with by like some doctors, and they actually have it where it's like creating problems later, and it's so much not like any of the CW shows where it's like romance driven
Yeah.
or like stupid drama. Like the story is pretty quick paced, and it's funny in a way that I wish the rest of the DC universe was funny, like as far as when it comes to like DCU. Nolan films are great in that like it makes jokes towards like the comics. Like one of them, like Dick Grayson, is like being told to like mingle in small talk, and he's like failing at it. People are like, "What is this weirdo?" He's just like shit, and like standing at this like party event thing like alone.
Yeah.
And he's like turns to his head and he's like, "I wonder what the penguin's doing right now."
So
And it's
I
just
thought that show was like, I don't know, like, because I know that show came out, or like it came about around the time when DC was kind of, there was like a kind of like they were kind of establishing like some kind of television thing. Like I know there was that, and then what was it, Doom Patrol and all
Doom
that.
Patrol is from it too, and Doom
Yeah.
Patrol is also fantastic. I would say that I like Titans more than I like Doom Patrol. Doom Patrol is like if you like kind of like wacky, multi-dimensional stuff, and then
I like Brendan
Titans.
Fraser. That's what I like.
Oh well, Brendan Fraser is great in it, but yeah, Doom Patrol also has an episode in Titans, but Titans is so good.
So are
If
they
you
still
like The
making
Boys
episodes,
and
or
you
is that
like
like?
The Watchmen, then like watch it.
So are they like are they still making episodes, or is that thing done?
Yeah, I think season 3 is gonna come out somewhat soon.
Okay, fuck Batman. Got it.
Well, I mean, he gets over some of his issues.
Sure.
Uh, but that's not like, but yeah, super good. And yeah, that's really what I've been doing. I've been having yeah, just really just Divinity and Titans.
Yeah. Uh, so I just, it's funny that you mentioned, well, I guess it's not funny that you mentioned Divinity because that's kind of what you're playing right now. But speaking of CRPGs, I just got Pillars of Eternity for free on the Epic Store, which is a game that I've had a lot of curiosity about for a while. And I haven't played an RPG like that in some time. I think the last time I really put a lot of time into one of those was because I didn't spend that much time with Divinity. I think the last time I played a game, put a lot of time into a game like that was like Fallout 2. So Um, I'm looking forward to checking that out. But I don't know. I've become less into because I've mentioned this before on the show. Like I become less into JRPGs and isometric CRPGs as I've gotten older.
What's a isometric RPG?
Something along the
I'm not a
lines
dev.
of like Divinity or uh, or Fallout. It's just like it's just computer RPG. It's just the kind of RPGs that you'll typically find on PC as opposed to
Got
like
you.
on console and everything. But I want to
Because
put
I would have just labeled it as like a Western RPG and like
yeah, but that's so broad
that's it.
now, because I think that a lot of times when people think Western RPGs, they think of like third person open world RPGs like The Witcher or Kingdoms
Dra-
of Amalur or something like that.
Dragon's Dogma,
Yeah.
Dragon Age.
So
Lots of dragons.
yeah.
Anything dragon.
Um.
uh, but yeah.
So yeah.
So how are you like? Oh yeah, I've also been playing Tetris and Nier Automata still.
So
Tetris just for funsies and Nier Automata because I really want to know more of that story.
uh, yeah. So Nier Automata is so like I feel like it's so like there's so much depth to that game that like I don't know if I can handle it right now with what I'm playing, but
Oh yeah,
it's
for sure.
it's been a game that like has been on my radar since it came out, honestly, and especially after I've actually because I think the first time I saw it in action was uh, when Tom got it, and I was watching him play, and I thought it looked awesome, and like to actually play it, it's awesome, but I don't know that I have the bandwidth for it right now. But
No, that makes sense.
I definitely want to get to
It's
it.
kind of like when you try to play Horizon Zero Dawn and what was the other RPG that you were trying to play at the same time?
Assassin's Creed
What?
Origins.
Yeah.
And like
Uh,
it's funny because like what ended up happening is I just stopped playing both of them. Uh, but
which is not what you want to do because
no, well
on that
I
one.
bought them around the same time because I think they were both on sale when I bought them,
Yeah.
and I remember I got a good way. I got a pretty far into Horizon, but then like I missed something that was totally missable, and then I couldn't stop thinking about it, so I stopped playing, and I was like, I'll just start over at this point and just do it again. But then I ended up. I
Do
also
it live.
we'll do it live. Uh, that's a what's that guy's name?
Bill
Bill
O'Reilly?
O'Reilly. That's right.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
But then I ultimately ended up finishing Assassin's Creed Origins. Well, when I say finish, I mean got through the story. I didn't platinum it or anything, but
Not yet.
you, I don't know. Like I'm gonna do Valhalla, and then because I remember I tried to go back to Origins after finishing Odyssey, and then I was just like, I can't do this right now.
This is a hard no from me, dog.
Well, like it's
Uh,
also because like all three of those games have some like weirdly obtuse trophies, and I don't have the energy to go for another weirdly obtuse trophy right now.
no, I
Uh,
get you on that one.
so
But hey, you had a topic this week.
yeah,
As I
so basically, over the last few years, I've been thinking a lot about um, what games I will and won't devote my time to, and I think this is something that we touched kind of briefly on the show, where I think that all of us have specific political and ethical leanings that will either repel us from or pull us toward specific video games. And I kind of just wanted to talk about times when that has like significant times when that has really been the case, um and really talk about like how, because I think that like over the last over the last 20-25 years, like most people, my opinions and my feelings about a lot of things has evolved and changed over that time. and it's affected like my outlook and how I receive certain things. And I think about how they're like in my 30s. That I've seen games that that 10 or 11-year-old Ryan would have jumped at the chance to play just because they felt, or they, I guess they would have felt like more adult or more mature just because of like their violent content or there's a lot of swearing or what have you. And then as I gotten older and those things became less important to me by a lot, then I, I became more discriminating about what kind of
It's
games
kind
I will engage with, just based on like their
It's
subject
kind of like
matter.
when Borderlands 1 came out.
Yeah,
We all thought it was hilarious. And now Borderlands 3 is out, and we think it's less funny, and the shtick is kind of over.
yeah. I think that like honestly, and I don't think, and that's the thing. The funny thing about Borderlands is that like I don't have any sort of like real moral or political opposition to Borderlands. I just think that the writing is dumb and it's hard to like it's hard to it's
Yeah, you don't laugh at it, enjoy it like you did before,
yeah,
in a more like lighthearted
because
sphere as
I
far as when it comes to like.
yeah, because I think that 12-year-old Ryan would have thought Borderlands. I think 12-year-old Ryan would have thought Borderlands 3 was hilarious, and it's honestly so far from what I've experienced is worse than 2. But um, from like a narrative standpoint, the gameplay is fine. But like
Yeah, no. But yeah, just talking about like the jokes and comments and
yeah,
stuff that are made.
and so
Like,
like and it's funny because like I do think that like at times very briefly Borderlands as a franchise will have like it'll have like this brief moment of like wokeness and then it will immediately disappear. uh so the what immediately comes to mind with that is in
sorry, I'm just imagining like Borderlands just like, whoa.
yeah, well like so what comes to mind is there's a moment um in the pre-sequel. I don't know if you're familiar with the character Mr. Torg, but
No,
he's a
no.
muscle bound man who yells a lot and loves explosions. He is the CEO of one of the weapons manufacturers in the game called Torg, and all of their weapons explode in some way. So anyway, his whole thing. So he first showed up in Borderlands 2 as part of a DLC, and he just regularly like yells and like is like amped up all the time and does guitar noises with his mouth all the time. He's just that's his thing. So anyway, and he shows up again in the pre-sequel, and there's a character that he asks out, like he asks to be his girlfriend, and then like she says no, and then he says friend zoned really loud, and then that's it. Then he comes back on, he's like, I'm just kidding, the friend zone is a toxic idea that comes from a place of entitlement. And he's like there's nothing more, he's like nothing more awesome than treating women with respect or something like that. And that was that game's one moment.
Developers and writers, I do think like they're writing that stuff to be funny, but I don't think like all of them subscribe to the ideology of the jokes that they make.
Well,
But I
yeah,
will say that I do think that a lot of the customers and players is the word I was looking for,
sure.
uh don't don't have that nuance.
Yeah, like
I think some of them are probably pretty toxic and think the jokes and stuff are funny in a non-ironic way.
well, I think
I
like
mean, granted, I don't know a lot of the jokes and the writing in 3. I'm just basing it off of my experience with 1 and 2.
I'll just like my experiences with video game communities, and I will preface this by saying that I understand that what I've interacted with is you know
A small portion.
it's a very small sample size. I get that, but from what I've seen, they are not very keen on the idea of the friend zone being a construct. But that was that game's like moment where I was like, okay, they said something valid for once, and then but then the rest of it was just whatever. But
I yeah, but kind of speaking on that though, like when we were talking about the topic before the show, really what comes to my mind besides like things that we've already talked about, like such as like David Cage with Chronic
Yeah.
Dreams and like the sexual misconduct,
Yeah.
and then also the crunch time and the way he treats his employees, like that makes me not want to buy Chronic Dream games. And we don't want to talk about that, like politically, there we've talked about that.
Yeah.
But honestly, a majority of my life and of playing video games, um, like the players that I interact with seem to like affect it more than the stories I read. And maybe it's because I'm bad at reading like video game news.
Yeah.
I do get educated quite often by you and Tom. But like I don't know, like that's always kind of like made me like really like gravitate to a game or not. Like I remember quite often in the retail days, like I would see what people would look like. So I'd be more like, I don't want to play this game. Every person who's bought this game is a fucking asshole. Fuck them. And I realize now that I'm like away from it. I'm like, that's a stupid thing to think, Shanae. But
Yeah.
like younger Shanae, for sure. If you annoyed me and you loved a game, fuck that game. I
Yeah.
wish that game didn't exist.
Yeah.
And if I also loved that game, I was really sad about it.
Sure.
Um, but when it comes, but also like when I hear about like communities like with World of Warcraft, I hear it a lot just because like I have a lot of friends that play it. Like, doing nice things in the community, like for each other, like for the other gamers, it makes me want to play that game. So I'm like,
Sure.
oh, nice people play it.
Yeah.
And I don't think I necessarily like cared about how nice the community was beforehand. I cared about like not wanting to play the same game as like douchebags. But as far as the actual community goes and like nice acts in it, because like you're right, like we do see such a small portion of the internet, even if we're looking at very similar places, like the algorithm with all the social media and other things that get popped up for you is very different.
Yeah. Honestly, I one of the a couple of the games that I thought about where I was just like morally opposed to playing them was like so uh there's a franchise called Shadow Warrior,
Hmm.
and I think about how like on paper like the idea of the game is very cool. You have guns, you have swords, and you mix the two together, and the game is very violent and it's just dumb, like mindless fun, right? But what I could like, but like over the as I've gotten older, again, like how I feel about how people of specific groups are represented is like how they're represented in video games is like very important to me, and I'm not just talking about like the group that I'm a part of, but other ethnicities as well, and like I thought about like the thing about Shadow Warrior is it's just so like the main character's name is Lo Wang. He's a Chinese guy, and he's voiced by a white guy doing what I'm sure he believes is his best impression of a
Yeah,
Chinese
I brought
guy
up this.
speaking English, and it's just like I can't I can't bring myself to play something like that. And like
Because
the argument always is like, well, that's the way it's always been. I was like, so it's not shitty because it's always been that way, So I, you know,
I so kind of so I was thinking about that the other day when you were talking to kind of like go a little bit off topic, but when you were talking about how you watched Kim's Convenience and you really enjoyed it. So Appa, that's not his actual
right?
like accent. Like he's basing it off of people that he's met and known.
Yeah,
And even he has said like at points he feels uncomfortable like
yeah,
making the jokes and stuff because it is like he's like I want to show what like actual people are like because I know people like this, but I also feel like I am like pushing a stereotype.
sure.
And I was wondering what your thoughts were on like because I also don't think he is the same ethnicity as the accent that he's doing.
So I mean, because I remember looking him up because I got curious about the cast of the show and figuring out like where they were from, and I do know that he is Korean. Uh,
Okay.
so I, but and I'd always figured
I guess
that,
it's one of the other. I guess maybe it's Oma or like one of. I thought one of the parents wasn't Korean.
and so what I assumed he was doing, and I think it's kind of weird, right? Because uh, what I assume he's doing is like an impression. I'd always assumed he was doing an impression of his parents, or like impression of like people who he grew up with, and like that is kind of what he brought to the show. Um, but like that's one of those things, right? Where like when you hear an a Korean man doing an impression of, I presume,
So if
another
he's
Korean man, then it's like it's just I don't know. It's just it's a weird
so
thing.
that's I mean it is different because it's because you're speaking from experience. You're not or like are you doing impersonations based off experience and
Yeah,
life rather than stereotypes and things that you've just heard through the grapevine. There is a difference between firsthand experience and like what you think that
yeah,
experience might be.
yeah. So that,
Uh,
and so like
yeah, no, all right. Well, then I guess like my point is moot because I thought that he also wasn't. I was just like, I wonder how he feels about that.
yeah. Um, but it's not, and it's not, and and I know that I talk about race and representation and in portrayals, and that, and largely it's just because that shit's important to me. But
Well, also it's interesting, and I like to hear your. I personally like to hear your viewpoint on it.
um and but like conversely from Shadow Warrior is like one of the things that drew me to Watch Dogs 2 was I was just like, you know, hell yeah. Like we're not on the forefront of video games very often. Like there are very few times when a black man is on the cover of a video game as the main character. Um,
And it not be like Grand Theft Auto, 50 Cent,
yeah,
like Saints Row, Def Jam,
yeah.
Knockout, or whatever.
I went into it with the feeling of, well, yeah, I'm digging this representation, and then it comes like I also asked you about like how your how like political and ethical leanings make affect how you react to a game. And I played Watch Dogs 2, and I was just like, I felt very much like there was a good faith effort to positively represent everyone who was portrayed on the screen. And like there's even a minor character in the game who was trans. She's a councilwoman, and I feel like that's one of those things. And I'm not trans, so I can't speak to the the quality of that portrayal. But what I can say is that, and looking at how this character uh, was represented on the screen, I felt like it's very easy, because like one of the things that, like I was talking about before about trans people on TV and in movies is like the joke is that they're trans. Like the joke is this is a woman who was designated male at birth, and then whoever she interacts with, she tricked them, and that's the joke, right? And so like
The joke is that everybody else, I mean, more towards today rather than like before the 90s, but let's say like mid 90s going forward.
yeah,
There's also was the trend where everybody else was okay with it, but like one person. And the joke was like that one person that didn't get
yeah,
it.
yeah. So
And that's
their transphobia
marginally
was
better.
funny.
It's
um,
marginally better, but normally that still doesn't give a lot of depth to the actual trans character.
yeah.
So, okay.
So like like her the fact that she's trans isn't like the focal point of really any of her conversations. There is a like there's a minor bit where um, she mentions that like someone is trying to blackmail her, and they have all these videos of her, like including videos of her surgeries, and that she doesn't want getting out there. So that's the only point where her being trans is actually mentioned. But I felt great about the fact that that representation was there, and I've never actually, and I guess I should talk to an actual trans person who has played the game to see how they feel about it. But for how much I talk about how much I want positive trans representation in all forms of media, I was really happy to see that she wasn't a gimmick. She was like, this is a city councilwoman that the main character is working with to make the city better, and by extension maybe make the country better. So I really appreciated that, and it's like, and I feel like I think that before um, before I learned as much as I have learned over the last 25 years, I feel like I might have that probably would have just like completely went over my head. And I might not, and maybe I might have had like a shitty reaction to it or something. I can't be sure, but like knowing what I know now and how and what my leanings are now, like I feel like that's like a very positive step in the right direction. I can't see that becoming the mainstream anytime soon, but you know,
I will say that there's been quite a few Netflix originals. There's two that I'm trying to think of. I think like one is Warrior Nun, or is that just the name of the thing from Watchmen? But there's like one where there's like basically nuns and like the Michael's angel or Michael's like halo or whatever gets like put into the back of this
oh
girl and she
yeah,
like goes
I've
traveling.
I've seen I've seen I've seen 1.5 episodes of that show.
All right, so later, that girl that gets like the halo put in, um she runs into these people who are like kind of like crashing people's houses like across Europe. And there's a girl in there who is trans. And I don't and they never like address it. They just call her.
Yeah,
It's very but it's like and it's super nice. And I've seen her as well in a different Netflix show as well. And it is nice seeing it happen more and more where it's just like, hey, like
you're
this
just
is a
another
thing and
you're
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 being
not,
treated well and you're getting a
yeah, you're
character
you're you're another
that's
human
not
being and not you're not some like attraction. um
yeah. You're not like a plot you're not like a plot device and you're not one dimensional. You're an actual human being and it's super nice to see.
yeah. um but do you have any games that have either positively affected you because of what your political or ethical leanings are, or maybe games that have like turned you off because of them?
I guess as positive goes, I mean for well, I say negative for a long time I did not like the Lara Croft uh franchise, like the Tomb Raider one. I just felt like, oh, this is just a sexy woman in a mediocre platformer. I'm also just not good at platformers, so
Sure.
fuck this game.
Yeah.
Um, and I will say like probably having I mean, I was already excited about Borderlands whenever I saw the art and what Siren was originally supposed to be, but I did get more excited definitely whenever they changed her to a female. I think as far as games go, that like political leanings that have changed over the years. Like most of it's kind of the same if it's like based off the actual game
Yeah.
rather than like the community.
Sure.
Because you can't really because most of my core values are still there. Like do it turned off? Like do I think that I would probably get into Borderlands now if it was the same like shtick as like it was whenever it first came out? I probably would not have.
Yeah.
The humor does not appeal to me at 30 as it did like whenever that game came out.
Sure.
Um, but as far as like positivity, it's really just like seeing like good representation. As far as like stuff like seeing more of myself, seeing like companies that I've like heard that were like they put an effort into having more female or people of color like in the writing room and development room. And like as far as those go, seeing more diversity and hearing more voices where it's a new story and something actually interesting, I think is probably like I lean towards now. Like we're talking about before in a previous episode, like seeing there's like a game by like these Indian developers
Oh,
where it's like all
Raji.
the gods you were saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that sounds fucking cool. And I'm like, yeah, I want to see that story. And that probably not that it wouldn't have appealed to me at all like 10 years ago, but I probably wouldn't be as excited to hear about what it is as I
Yeah.
am now.
Yeah.
Um, though I did have another question for you.
Sure.
So you've been playing a lot of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, right?
Right.
And then back in June and July, the creative director, Ashraf Ismail,
Mm-hmm.
he like a bunch of like sexual harassment things were like alleged towards him, and then in August he was terminated from like the game or whatever. Do you think that you that you would have still chosen to platinum that game if they had not terminated him from the project.
So I think that so I'll say number one that I don't really subscribe to the vote with your wallet ideology, largely in that I think it's unrealistic to try to apply that philosophy in a large enough scale to affect any sort of meaningful change. Uh, I think
But but morally, it makes me feel better if I know that this game exists because of a and a bad person was like in charge of it or like had a big like part in it. Then like I feel at least like for me that like, hey, I'm not going to purchase
yeah.
this one game. Like it makes me feel morally and ethically better.
Yeah, so like what I'm saying is like I'll never like not I won't ever pass on a game with the intent of being like I'm going to show this publisher that this doesn't fly because they don't know me from Adam, right? But I do think that from a moral standpoint, it would be hard to play a game if I knew it was made by people who didn't take that sort of thing seriously. And especially considering the fact that like Ubisoft has had like so much fucking internal turmoil over the last few years with all sorts of sexual misconduct allegations uh
Yeah.
and like
And then
just being like from not I just hearing so many things about how hard it is to work there like as a woman or as you know as any sort of like marginalized person. But with that being said, I do think that if they hadn't taken that action seriously, honestly, I would have stopped. I would have stopped my decision to purchase that game. And you know what? Honestly, even if I had heard about it as I was like in the middle of the game, I don't think I could bring myself to continue playing it. It's just that sort of thing is just really abhorrent and gross to me. So I guess short answer, no, I would not have bought the game. But I think also that like that's just another conversation about like so I think that there are so many times when I feel like the way people feel about developers and publishers and like their practices both internally and publicly, whether or not they're into those things depends largely on how excited they are for the game. Like I'll give you an example. Um, I think one of the things that people talk about is crunch a lot
yeah.
with video game development, and that goes back to something that I talk about is like vote with your dollar is conceptually fine and good, but I think that like moving to vote for policies and laws that prevent crunch in the first place is probably more important. Um,
Uh but I also think that that kind of goes without saying that you should do both.
I mean,
At least I hope so.
so
Like,
I think that the emphasis is I think that the emphasis is largely misplaced with that stuff, but but again, I think that that stuff matters to people insofar as how excited they are for a game and how excited they are to like let's say that right before Final Fantasy VII Remake came out, it was revealed that the director was like super homophobic and was on Twitter like saying all sorts of things about gay people. If nobody, and maybe this is cynical of me, but I honestly think that if people weren't so hyped for Final Fantasy VII remake, then they would have been like, fuck that game, fuck Final Fantasy, don't want any part of it. But there was so much hype built up around it that that stuff wouldn't have mattered. This is all hypothetical, of course, so I'm gonna put it into actual. So we talked about Detroit and David Cage's behavior at that place and how he treats his workers. and there was so much hype built up around Detroit and how pretty it looked and how it was this big showcase of a game, and there were so many people that bought that game and decided that, you know what, I'm okay. Like they were either didn't know or they decided that they were okay with it, and
Or
I
they decided they're not going to do the entire team based on David Cage, even though he's the
yeah
founder of Quantic Dreams and the director of that game.
yeah
And but he's also isn't that company French or French Canadian? So
there
even then, if you
well
vote politically to have like certain laws,
sure like I
you
what I'm
can't
saying
like it can't affect cross country,
well
but you
what
can affect dollar amount.
what I'm saying, well, I mean, I'm not when I make a statement like that, I'm not limiting it to people who live in the United States of America. I think that
Well, I'm
people
saying
in
like for me
yeah,
personally to
but
affect
like
other countries.
like that's the funny thing about Detroit is it doesn't even stop there, right? Even if David Cage weren't such a garbage person, I think like there's just so much problematic shit in that game that I can't support it either way.
What
And
else is in that game? I didn't look at what the
it's
content was
just
besides the trailer.
the whole thing is just like a really clumsy allegory about racism and like and is very I resent the idea that the only way to make a piece of fiction that talks about racism is to make it about not exactly the thing that you're talking about. Like instead of making it about people of color, let's just make it about robots of all colors. The racist against
Or
the robots
mutants.
or
Or
mutants
mutants, X-Men.
or
Uh,
like that fucking Will Smith movie, that Netflix movie Bright. It's like, well, let's not make it about. We're not gonna do black people. Let's do orcs. People can relate to orcs. They can feel bad about it. It's like so it's shit like that, which makes it like I resent it. I resent it wholesale. Um,
uh, Understandably, 1000%, because it is basically like current day revisionist history
but that the
because
but
you're ignoring the fact that like what you're trying to talk about
yeah, and
and either infantilizing it or like making it like fantasy, even though it's reality. Like it's
yeah,
very much ignoring the actual thing that you're trying to make a game about.
and that's one of the things that I hate about it is just that like if instead of doing robots, we did black people or Hispanic people or Asian people and talked about how they're marginalized and made a whole narrative driven story about that, then the whole reaction to that game would have been uh the whole reaction to that game would have been was like, well, they're shoving this shit down our throats. I'm sick of it. But like, I mean,
But also
that's kind of besides the point.
trailers, any robots of color.
What?
I'm gonna put that out there. Like I don't remember in any of the trailers seeing any androids of color.
Oh, there was one
One.
played by actor Jesse Williams, uh,
Oh.
and he's. I'm not going to get into why I feel he's more palatable to audiences on the show, but I will say that even like because I've been I've watched that entire story unfold, and it's just the whole thing is just it's just bullshit. But I think that that's one of those examples of a game that I find repellent, not just because of who made it, but the content that it contains. I just feel like, as somebody with the lived experience of racism and the understanding of what racism is and what it feels like, and to have it be reduced to people are mean to robots, it fucking that whole thing just fucking sucks and is gross to me. Um, and that's just one of those things.
It's real fucking gross.
Yeah, and like and again
I know. I'm
I
just being hype man over here.
but I think that it's not, and it's really not just things that are as overt as like as people mistreating a specific group of people. Like I can hear about like for example, I heard about Outlast 2, and one of the scenes in Outlast 2 um featured, so when I heard that there was a scene in Outlast 2 that featured a sexual assault, like I had immediately there and then decided that I will not be playing Outlast 2, just for the simple fact that like one, I cannot like I find it really hard to like watch anything with that sort of thing in it. Like I can't do it.
Um, I can't think of any. I mean, I haven't seen the thing about Outlast 2. I'll probably have to look that up more. But I can't think of any game that I've played or seen or heard about that has a rape scene as graphic as Far Cry 3, where that girl's like on top of you and
Yeah,
like you get that point of view before she like
yeah,
kills you.
yeah.
Spoiler alert on that. Um, yeah, I've never seen any dude on top of a girl before he kills her in a game.
But like, and I
And I
also
feel like that's and sorry, but on there and but like I just remember so many people like buying the game for their kid and we'd be like, hey, so like this is in the game and try to say it like as sensitively as possible.
yeah.
And people be like, that's fine. I'm just like, how
Um,
is that fine? Because I'm pretty sure if it was reversed, like you as a mother or grandmother would not be fine. And but
yeah.
even then, I don't know. It's a weird thing that everyone was okay with, and I don't remember people talking
Well,
about a lot and being upset
I
about.
mean, I know why people are okay with it, and I'll tell you in a second. But like, the reason I couldn't play Outlast 2 is just like besides what what I mentioned before is also that I just wholeheartedly resent people using rape and sexual assault as a plot device. I just like just stop. I just wish people would stop doing it. Um, but like the reason why people didn't think it was a big deal in Far Cry 3 is because largely people don't take sexual assault of men very seriously.
Oh, 100%.
There's a stigma that men can't be raped, and that men can't be sexually assaulted, and that is just that's not true. Um,
I mean, I'm not mad at them for putting it. I mean, I guess I'm also kind of okay with it. I mean, I don't want kids to play it. Like that's like there's things that like I'm okay with like 13-year-olds playing that are like are rated like M or whatever, like
yeah,
Left 4 Dead or something like that. Things that like don't really have a lot of moral ambiguity, but like it like even but like things, and it's not just sexual content either. Because I think that there's other games as well that like my sister would want to buy for the my nephews and be like, hey, is this a good game? Even if it was like whatever the PG-13 is or like E for 10 or whatever. And I'm
yeah,
like, hey, you might want to talk to your sons about like this before they play it. Like you may want to see like what they know about like this aspect. Like at least like socially and morally. But like as far as that goes, like I guess like I also was like okay with it because I do think that there is something to be said about having it on a game or a screen or a movie or a book about sexual assault and the fact that it does happen in
sure,
real life and it's not just like a thing that doesn't exist. But I do think that you're right. Just having it as a plot device to move the plot forward or to give the character depth,
yeah,
to make them interesting. Being a rape victim isn't interesting. It's a traumatic event that you have to live with and
yeah,
changes you as a person. That the journey is the interesting part.
yeah.
The rape itself is
and
awful.
and games don't treat it that way. And on top of that, then there's that whole game is a white
Is it
savior
is it
sort of
oh
white savior
100%.
simulator. So
I mean,
that's a
I
big
feel like
part
isn't
of why
that
that game
all the
is
Far Cry games?
well. So okay, so Far Cry 3 was the white savior game. You go to
Wasn't Far Cry 2 the same way?
So Far Cry 2 could have been the same way if you played as a white guy, but the game does give you options to not play as a white guy.
Um, in that rate, because from that scene on there, I remember like her killing me after that or
Yeah.
during that, whatever you want to call it. And then like I went back and I didn't choose the things that like I loaded up. Can you end that without that sex scene, or can you end that sex scene without her murdering you?
I don't know. I haven't played that game for about 8 years now, so I
That's fair. That's fair on that one. But
um,
I mean, if you can live after it, I hope they bring it up somehow. I don't know.
well,
But
I can tell you for a fact that it never comes up again.
okay,
Uh,
because I played the one where I mean, obviously, like I said, I got murdered. I loaded, didn't do that shit to like have her appear, and they never talked about it. But I was like, oh, I guess because it never happened.
Yeah, and again, I do think that it's not a big deal, and it never happened because again, that's just how society views sexual assault of men, and
Yep.
even like and
Or that you
that's
must have liked it.
yeah, and like it's just
It's
it's
gross.
it's awful,
Fucking gross.
um
It's
but I think that stuff like that serves to further desensitize people to things like that, because when you don't touch on like the gravity of what that what what kind of effect that has on somebody.
I get I don't really want to say it in the same terms of like, oh, we want like good representation or diverse representation because we've talked ad nauseum about how we both don't like characters that are like your token diverse character. Like they don't
Yeah,
like there's like you're just there to say you have it or to like, but it doesn't actually like add anything to the story nor make sense. Um, but I do think that like I said, I do think it's important that it exists and stuff. I
yeah,
guess like the sensitivity and the way that you frame it in the game and story, like I think that there definitely could be ways in video games to do it and have it show how traumatic and create that empathy with victims so people have maybe more of an understanding,
yeah.
but also like be respectful.
I think that the thing that keeps that from being the case is largely the fact that you're not going to. Well, I think that honestly to
You're not
get
going to do everybody's experience,
well,
obviously.
there's that, but
A.
like also I think that is going to be written a lot of the time when it comes to this. It's going to be written by somebody who does not have that as a lived experience, and I'm not saying at all that I want anybody to have to experience that, but I do
But
think
there's plenty of writers and women and men who have been raped who are writers and in the gaming sphere that you can talk to, that you
yeah,
can get those experiences, that even if you didn't experience it yourself, have uh you researched and gained the knowledge of hearing and listening and hearing and taking into like account what people have told you.
yeah, but I think also there's a few things, right? Like I think that that's a tall ask, um, in a few different
There's a
ways.
lot of people who deal with rape or sexual assault. Like it's a
Yeah,
very high percentage,
yeah, that's
higher for men than people probably think because men don't report it because no one takes it seriously.
yeah,
Um, it's got to be not that hard to ask some like to
sure.
talk to somebody.
I think well I think it's a large ask to for a few different reasons. Like one, to ask somebody to recount that experience for the sake of whatever fiction you're trying to write. Then two, there's the idea of writing it in a way to where you actually commit to portraying it in a way that is
But
meaningful. But then there's
but I
also
think that if you're a writer who's wanting to put this like event in your like story of your
yeah,
game, you have a responsibility
sure,
to like to not perpetuate bad things. And I know that like maybe like some people probably do not feel that like writers and creative developers have the responsibility to make things like good for everybody or like for like every instance. But I do think that when it comes to certain topics, they do. They
yeah.
do.
Well, I do.
Until things are better,
Yeah.
until like and that may be decades or whatever, but like until things are better, like I feel that responsibility is there.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think that if you are going to put something like that in your video game, then you have that is you taking on the responsibility of doing that, and to not engage with it after the fact is you not living up to that responsibility. But I think that for now, at the very least, the best thing to do is to kind of, again, like I said, avoid using it as a plot device, and find another way to try to make your character interesting. And I think that it's especially egregious with women in fiction, and I'm talking about across all mediums. That is usually violence against women is usually what is used to justify why this woman is strong and hardened because she lived through that kind of trauma, and but that is never the case with
Okay.
men, right? With men, like they're hardened because they've seen so many battles and they've killed so many people that like that is why they're so tough.
And
Um,
even and if anything any of it has sexual assault against men, it's either a joke
yeah,
or if it is something that's like traumatic, like Star's Outlander. Jamie gets the male lead, he gets raped by another dude, and that is actually used to show his growth and development. Meanwhile, there's a couple other female characters in that same show that have dealt with it, and it doesn't seem to be as intense as far as the healing goes. And granted, like I did just say, like people deal with it differently, so not everybody's experience is the same, nor is their grief or processing. But I do think that like I've seen in more media that when a sexual assault thing is taken seriously, when it's a female, it is just more about their reaction than their development and growth from it than men. Not that either happens super often in a and in like an in-depth light,
yeah,
but but back to games though, like I guess like on that one, I don't enjoy that it's there, but like I said, at the time, or kind of going back to Far Cry 3, like at the time, I was like, okay, this is a thing we're doing, I guess,
yeah,
and like everyone's okay with it.
yeah, and that sort of thing can
Um,
like that. And again, because I have specific moral and ethical leanings that like I could be like the white savior stuff notwithstanding, I could be enjoying my time
yeah,
all the way up to that point, and then that like seeing like that and its portrayal in that way will just completely sour the entire thing for me. Like that entire thing is now ruined for because of things like that. And it's something that I've never been able to. It's not something that I can really get past. Like it will usually that is something that will usually end my playthrough of a game. Um,
I don't think I play a variety of a game of games enough to really have like more of those
yeah,
experiences. And when I do buy it, I've normally done like a lot of research
yeah,
or it's been recommended to me by people that I appreciate and love.
sure.
So they would kind of give me a heads up on things like that.
So like I played the second Deus Ex game. Well, not the second, but like the second modern Deus Ex game, Mankind Divided, and
Okay.
I paid $60 for that game, and I was playing it, having a decent time, and then so the whole thing with Deus Ex is that there are people who augment their bodies with cybernetic implants and whatnot, and there are people who are opposed to people doing that, and the two groups of people frequently clash. Um, I remember,
As they do.
yeah, as two opposing groups are wont to do. And I remember about 3 or 4 hours into the game, or I've been playing the game for about 3 or 4 hours, and then I got to this part where you're walking around a city, and I saw a poster on the wall that said "Aug Lives Matter," like augmented people, and like
Oh.
I saw that, and I was like, well, I'm done with this game, and I immediately turned it off and uninstalled it. It's just like because it's just like I was like, what a, I remember being very upset, and I was like, so this is a joke. This is a joke to whoever put that poster there. This is a joke to whoever decided that that was a good idea. And
I
um,
mean, was it just because I don't have any point of reference for this game besides what you're telling me right now? Um, is there any chance that it was done as in to make fun of the people who say all lives matter?
I really don't think so.
Or is it just like, okay.
Because they're
I was like, if it wasn't like
the
abundantly clear or you didn't get that vibe, then that I understand that. But
the
since I
backdrop of
don't
this entire
know,
game is augmented people. Is keep in mind these are people who put robot arms on themselves for whatever reason. Uh, there's these people. The whole thing is them fighting for. Honestly, I don't remember what they were fighting for. I think it was like some kind of equal treatment or something. Which but whatever. But like,
People stop being mean to them.
yeah, but they said all lives matter, and this is, by the way, this is around the time when the Black Lives Matter had gotten a lot more coverage in the news, and was a much more prominent movement, um, and it seemed very, the chord that it struck with me was very much like, let's take this contemporary example and mold it into the game and make it
Mm.
this other thing.
It was
and
very tone deaf.
and I could just, and I got to that point and I was like, well, I'm just not playing this game anymore. I had no I
And
didn't I
fair
didn't
on that.
I didn't realize that this was the kind of game that it was. So I'm just not gonna play it anymore, and I haven't touched the game since, because of that. And it's things like that where I just, like, I can just immediately be turned off by it, because I have very specific political and personal and moral feelings about really important things to me, and I felt like it was being made. I felt like it was being trivialized and joked about, um, and I couldn't get past it.
And that's fair. But do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah. Um, it can be very easy to get swept up in the hype of new video games and wanting to be a part of that conversation. And there are a lot of people who are going to tell you that if you see something in the promotional material for a game, or you see something in a video game that offends you or upsets you, they're going to tell you that you're being stupid or being ridiculous. But other people don't get to decide what offends you. Other people don't get to decide what upsets you or hurts you. So if you are hurt or offended by the way something is being represented in a game, then just know that your feelings are valid, and you don't need to explain that to anyone.
Um, Mine is don't base your entire opinion of a game or franchise or studio based off what other people say.
Yeah.
Do try and have your own opinion about it. Similar to Ryan, if you see something that offends you, then don't buy or play the game. Obviously, if you want to like, I think that it is important that everybody do have a voice in their opinions, but no matter which way that you lean politically, please never send death threats to any of the developers or game
Oh,
makers.
absolutely fucking not. Do not do that.
There is a way to do constructive criticism about why you don't appreciate things in their game
Oh
and to
my
let them
fucking god.
know, without, you know, making anybody's mental health worse or creating a mob mentality or feeding into the trolls online or like that. I think that they're like, I understand people are passionate about their stuff, but yeah, no matter what, please be nice to people.
Yeah, it's just video games, guys. Just let's
But also
tone it back.
not just video games because game makers, you are helping, perpetuate stereotypes or creating new
Yeah.
perspectives in young minds.
Yeah,
So
but no,
like try and be aware too.
but
Uh
no one needs to die though.
yeah,
So
don't die over it or try or feel like despair or that you hate your life. Just, you know, try and be respectful in the things that you create.
yeah.
Um but yeah, this week we don't have, unless you have something, we don't have a Save Me Taliban Kenobi, Your Only Hope.
We'll have one next week.
Um
We'll have one
we will
next week.
have one next week.
Yeah.
But you guys can find us on the YouTube. So we got a Discord. We're on Stitcher, Podomatic, iTunes, Google Play,
Basically everything.
basically everything. Yeah, you can find us.
I mean, I think there are very few things that we're not on, but
Yeah. Bye, guys.
bye.